All right, welcome to part 2 of definition 1 of trig functions. So in this part, we are going to take a look at the signs of the trig functions in the different quadrants, and we're going to take a look at how to find certain trig functions given some information. Okay? All right, so take notes, algebraic signs of trig functions. So this is continuation of 1.3. Algebraic signs of trig functions. So we looked at that first definition of trig functions that looks at the different ratios of x, y, and r. And so you should have noticed that, okay, well, sine is y over r, and so the sign of sine will depend on the y value. And so depending on which quadrant that y value falls in, then sine theta will be either negative or positive. Okay, so let's take a look at the trig functions, and let's take a look at the sign of them, like positive, negative, depending on the quadrant. Okay, so we know that sine theta is y over r, and so if the y value is negative, then sine theta will be negative. If y is positive, then sine theta will be positive. So in quadrant 1, and I'm going to draw a tiny little quadrant up here. Okay, so this is quadrant 1. Okay, this is 2, and this is 3, and this is 4. Okay. All right, so in quadrant 1, y is positive, so sine theta will be positive. In quadrant 2, the y value is positive, so sine theta will also be positive. But in quadrant 3, which is over here, the y value is negative, so sine theta will be negative. And over here, the y value is also negative, so sine theta will be negative. When it comes to cosine theta is x over r. So if we take a look here, the x values are positive, therefore cosine theta will be positive. Over here in quadrant 2, the x values are negative, right? This is the x-axis, and on this side, the x values are negative. So quadrant 2, since the x values are negative, cosine will be negative. Quadrant 3, same thing. X values are negative, so cosine will be negative. And over here, quadrant number 4, the x values are back to being positive, so cosine will be positive. And then tangent is y over x. So here, now remember, these signs are really the signs of y and x. Okay, so here when we're trying to figure out the sign of tangent theta, we can just look at these here. Y over x. Y is positive, x is positive, therefore tangent will be positive. In quadrant 2, the y values are positive, but the x values are negative, so tangent will be negative. Over here in quadrant 3, y values are negative, x values are negative, double negative becomes positive. And then over here we have negative y values, positive x values, and so tangent will be negative. Okay? And once you know these, then you'll know the other three. You'll know that cosecant. Cosecant will have the same signs here because all it is the reciprocal of this. And same thing with secant. It will have the same signs as cosine. because secant is the reciprocal of this one. And cotangent will have the same signs as these. Okay? All right. I guess we could put that in there. Let's put down little. Let's put them down here. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at an example. So like here, a lot of students memorize this. I don't feel like you need to memorize this. You just have to be able to visualize the coordinate plane, and if sine are the y values, and then just try to visualize it. Okay, well, if you're in here, well, the y values are negative. So just try to visualize it, and you don't have to worry, oh, positive, positive, negative, negative. You don't have to memorize this. Okay. But like I said, some students do for some reason. Okay, so let's try this problem out. If sine theta equals negative 5 over 13. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this negative directly here in the middle. Okay? And then you'll have to figure out what is negative. Is the 5 negative or is the 13 negative? Okay? And theta terminates in quadrant 3. Find cosine theta and tangent theta. Okay, so you definitely want to draw this. Well, I guess not definitely, but I think it helps. It helps keep track of getting all of the x's and y's with the correct signs. Okay, so here's my x's, my y's. Sine theta terminates in quadrant 3, so we're somewhere over here. Okay, and we know that it is negative 5 over 13. So then that means we know that the r value is going to be 13. And we know the y value will have the negative 5 because r is never negative, right? Okay, so here we can figure out x by using the Pythagorean theorem. We know that r squared equals to x squared plus y squared. So we get 13 squared equals x squared, we don't know. Y squared, negative 5. So 169 equals x squared plus 25. And if you solve for x squared, we get 144. 144 equals x squared. Take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 144 is 12. Okay, so x equals 12. All right, so let's take a look at this though. If we say that this is 12, okay, so if we say this is 12, does that really make sense? Okay, and then that this y value over here is negative 5. Does that make sense? Okay, so the negative 5 makes sense because we're on the negative part of the y-axis, so that's correct. But this here, that needs to be a negative 12. Okay? And now that makes sense because positive 12 is over on this side. Okay? All right, does that make sense? All right, so we need to find cosine theta and tangent theta. We know cosine theta is x over r. X is negative 12. R is 13. And tangent theta is y over x. So that is negative 5 over negative 12. Double negative, we get positive 5 over 12. Okay, so there are your answers. Okay, so that's why I say draw this, just so that you can make sure that you have the correct signs for x and y. Make sure that they make sense. Okay, this part of the x-axis is negative. This part of the y-axis is negative. Okay? Alright, so go ahead and try this, and let's check to make sure that you do understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm going to give you this problem. If tangent theta equals negative 4/3, so again, I'm putting that negative in the middle. You'll have to figure out which one is negative, the 4 or the 3. Okay? And theta terminates in quadrant 2. Find sine theta and cosine theta. Okay? Alright, so once you copy all of this down, go ahead and hit the pause button and see if you can do this problem. Once you're done, then come back and unpause and check your answers with mine. Alright, go ahead. Hit the pause button. Okay, so we are in quadrant 2. So we are in here. Alright, and we know that tangent is y over x. Y over x, so this is 4, this is 3, and one of these is negative. So let's take a look at our drawing. So here the x values are negative, the y values are positive. So x has to be negative 3, and the y value here is positive 4. Okay, so negative 3 and positive 4. Let's go ahead and solve for r. R equals the square root of negative 3 squared plus 4 squared, 9 plus 16, square root of 25. R is 5. And r is always positive. Okay, so now we can find the sine theta. Sine theta is y over r. So that will be 4 over 5. And cosine theta will be x over r. And that will be negative 3 over 5. Okay? And that's all there is to it. Check. Make sure you have the correct signs. Make sure this all makes sense. Okay? Alright, so that is it for 1.3. If you have any questions, make sure you email me or text me. And make sure you're keeping up with all of the homework assignments.